hit start stream, but I can't, it doesn't show me a camera, so. Can somebody get on their phone and look at the city website and see if it says we're streaming something?
I was looking for the. It started because I have it on my YouTube. We are live.
Okay, we are live. Go ahead.
Okay, well, welcome to the Parks and Recreation Commission special meeting for February 21st, 2018. Could we have a roll call?
Oh, that's me. Sorry. I'm a poor substitution for Rachel. I apologize. Roll call attendance, Joe Greer.
Present.
Jessica West is absent. Keith Bevan.
Here.
Michelle Jensen.
Here.
Sheila McNay.
Present.
John Nesmith.
Here.
Mike Pepins, currently absent. Craig Steele, currently absent. And Hannah Sturdivant.
Here.
Okay. Madam President, we have 6 members and a quorum, so we can move forward.
Okay, we do have an amendment to the agenda for tonight. We wanted to change the old business and new business in the following order, with Julie Bokenkamp going first on the new business, Meridian Home Court, so Dana and Garrett going second on the old business, then going back to Tyler Roberts for the Meridian Department of Adult Sports update, and then going back to Steve, who will be presenting the South Meridian Regional Park naming graphics. So I need a motion to amend the agenda.
Madam President,
Yes.
I move we adopt the amended agenda.
A second?
I second. Madam President.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I also need an adoption or a motion to adopt the agenda. Well, do I have to do another motion to adopt the agenda if we just amended it?
No,
Okay.
I think you just approved it.
Okay. So now I need a motion for an approval of the January 10th, 2018 regular meeting minutes.
Madam President,
Yes.
I motion to approve January 10th's regular meeting minutes.
Commissioner Sturdivant seconds the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. So now we have announcements. Ms. Shelley?
Hello, Commissioners. How are you?
Good.
I left you a couple little Scooby snacks at your station. You'll each find the schedule of upcoming events that has the next 2 or 3 months' worth of items, as well as a small invitation postcard to an upcoming event. I won't annoy you by pretending to read this to you, but let me just point out a couple highlights. Steve Sidaway and I are going to wake up at Otark 100 tomorrow and go be the special guest speakers for the Meridian Lions Club over at the Hampton Inn here in Meridian, over by St. Luke's. And so you're all welcome to join us, and I could be happy to give you a 5 a.m. wake-up call. Anyone? Anyone? Okay, well, maybe we'll catch you another time when it's not such an early hour. But anyway, this will be good practice for us. We've updated our department PowerPoint, and again, I've got a calendar of events suitable for them, and so we'll see if we can engage. I think there should be about 20 or so individuals at that meeting, so we're going to do that. Coffee with the Mayor is something that might be of interest to you. I don't know if you've attended. Some of you have attended in the past. That's going to be at the Moxie Java, the new remodeled House of Brews, which is the Moxie at the corner of Fairview and Locust Grove, kind of over across from Fred Meyer. That's owned by the former city clerk and employee, J.C. Holman. So we've got to see what she's got up her sleeve for that. So that'd be great if you could join us. You'll also notice on here are our upcoming commission meetings, and some are a little out of pattern for various reasons, but especially we've got that dedication ceremony for the Journey of Heroes, which is a standalone event. That's what you have that postcard for March 15th. Hopefully you can do that with us. And then for the following month, for April, we're doing a combination. Remember, we're going to start at 4 p.m. with a ribbon cutting for the new pathway segment, H2, and then we'll stick around and have our bicycles ready and then take off from there for a pathways tour. And we're going to get a little more details. I'm working on the landowners and parking people to make sure we're very clear where we can park and where our gathering spot is for this event. So I'll let you know. I'm hoping y'all have access to a bicycle, but if you don't, speak up nice and early, and so we can make some arrangements to make sure you have a suitable bike, and we want a helmet for safety and whatnot. So we'll be communicating with you about that. Nothing else you need to know. We're working really hard with the people also on the Hills grand opening towards the end of May, and you'll certainly hear more about that as you will about the dedication ceremony for the Kleiner Park Memorial Plaza, where people will be able to buy the engraved bricks for their loved ones. So anyhow, take a look at that. If you have any questions about these or any other city events you're aware of, feel free to give me a call, check out our Facebook, the website, and we'll get you all squared away. Is that good for the moment? Any questions?
No, but thank you for making.
No problem. Hang on to this.
Thank
These
you
will
for
be some
making the
useful
list.
dates. Put them on your calendar, and we hope to see you. If you have any questions, you just let me know. Thank you.
Shelley.
Shelley.
And she gets clapping. Okay, so the next item would be Julie. Did you want to come up and give us an update?
President and members of the commission, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to fill you in on what's going on at the Kleiner Park Community Garden. My name is Julie Bokenkamp, and 2018 will be my 6th year running that garden with the Meridian Co-op Gardener Group. And I'm here to tell you about this amazing garden. 2017 was just a year unlike any year that we've had so far, and I think it's because we're accomplishing what we set out to do, which was to build community around growing this garden. And what is it that I'm using to...
You can hit the space bar and it should just carry you
Okay, that'll
forward.
advance that at that point. Anyway, when you bring people of diverse backgrounds and skills together with a shared common goal, amazing things happen. And every year it just gets better. The amount of food that we donate gets better, the community that gets better, the programs that we put on just improve every single year. It started with a garden, a place to grow. You know, it's a garden of stories, people, relationships, hopes, seeds growing, seeds not growing, food that feeds people in need. And the characters in this story are real. They're moms and dads, husbands and wives, children of all ages. We have grandparents, retired people, single people, young and older people. Many are friends, and it's the people in this garden that are the true heart of our garden. And we do a lot in this garden. You know, I feel like everybody's hungry for something. I think people are looking for something more to add to their life. I think it's the opportunity to give, the opportunity to do something bigger than what they are. And we donate thousands of pounds of food this year, nearly 4 tons of food, so we thought that number was pretty exciting. We donate those pounds to the community, but we feel that what we do is so much more, and it's not anything that can truly be measured. You know, we draw people together regardless of social class, culture, race, age, and through that, we end up making friends with people that might normally not be a part of our network. You know, it seems like if we're at work, those are the people we might hang out with, the neighbors, those might be people. These are people from all walks of life, all different ages, and it's really quite amazing what's happened over the last 5 years. You know, we also grow, besides relationships, we also teach gardening skills, social, healthy lifestyle skills, cooking, canning, self-preservation kind of skills, self-sufficiency skills. And every year something new has been added. These are some siblings that are a part of the garden who ate us out of tomatoes nearly every single time that we were picking. They absolutely had fun. So our annual report starts out about the things that we actually could measure. And so we maintain the garden. We allow up to 32 families to join. We found that to be sort of a magic number. Usually a third of those people will go away. This year that wasn't the case. They pay $35 to be a part of that garden, and that's to show up and be a volunteer for about 6 months out of every year. We start in March and we go through the middle of October. We work every Wednesday night and Saturday mornings. This year, we're moving to Tuesdays, and that will allow us to provide food to the food bank for Monday or for Wednesday and Thursday rather than just Thursdays. Going in, everybody learns to do everything from rototilling, staking up tomatoes, watering, hoeing, weeding, harvesting, everything that needs to be done to be able to take care of the garden. We also have volunteer groups that come and help us at the garden. Our largest one has been the labor detail with the Ada County Sheriff's Department. That was something we added 2 years ago, I believe. And they put in 167 hours this year. And I do that by number of people that show up for that day by the number of hours that they work. And they're extremely helpful for us. They come one day a month, May through October. And we had a Boy Scout troop come. Enernoc employees came at the end of the year to help me do clean out for a total of nearly 200 community service hours that were worked. We also believe in educating the public about what we're doing, not only through our Facebook page, but also through tours of the garden. People walk by the garden all the time as they're walking in the park. And we tell them and share with them what the garden's about, walking from one zone to the last zone. We also this year had 1 Brownie troop, 4 Cub Scout troops, 1 Boy Scout troop, and 2 presentations made to women's groups. And we started a program called Little Gardeners, which I'll share a little bit more about that later. We've already given 1 presentation in January this year. So, and that was to a United Way grant that they're doing between a church and an elementary school over in Caldwell. We're passionate about the food that we grow in this garden. We tend to grow everything organically and as organically as we possibly can. The people that are a part of the garden are passionate about that. That's important to them. And it's not even so much that the people in the garden need the food. We've had a few families that have needed the food. Most of these people are, I want to say a lot of them, just well-educated people that believe in eating well. We've grown every kind of vegetable you can imagine, numerous varieties of every type of vegetable. There's not much that we haven't tried in the garden, and those things that don't work, we don't grow again this year. Unfortunately, we are not potato farmers, so we will probably not be growing too many more potatoes. We donate to the Meridian Food Bank and also to a small food pantry up on the bench called Community Ministry Center. And every Wednesday and Saturday, the leftover food that the families haven't taken, each family gets to take a share, is taken into the Meridian Food Bank, just like you see it there in the picture, and weighed. And we go there, and then we also take food to this other pantry because at times the Meridian Food Bank has more food than they know what to do with, especially when the farm season and the harvest start coming off the garden. And I know when I take my cucumbers in and they've got 10 boxes of cucumbers, they're not going to be able to part with those in 10 days' time. This is a graph of weekly food bank donations. So you can see our first one was in May, and that was probably some lettuce, a little bit of stuff. So people work literally first part of April, end of March, clear through almost the first part of July before we realize much of any harvest at all. So we've got a good 3 months or longer. So they're putting in a lot of time and effort with nothing in return until the end. So you can sort of see where our ebb and flow goes in regards to our weekly donations. At times clear up to nearly 1,000 pounds at a time. And this is what our cumulative food bank donations look like. So from the start of the year in thousands of pounds all the way up to nearly 800. The amount written in the annual report was 7,400 and something, and the actual number is 7,518 because we found an error on our spreadsheet. So that was exciting that we went over the 7,518 pound, and that was, I believe, over 1,500 pounds more than last year. Meridian Food Bank, 5,011 pounds. Community Ministry Pantry, 2,507. And this year we did something unique. The Community Ministry Pantry had to shut down for a period of time, and so they were very low on a number of things. And because they're affiliated with the church, they don't have the same opportunity to, or the money to purchase from the Idaho Food Bank like regular food banks do. And so we did a peanut butter and jelly drive. And we're able to deliver peanut butter and jelly to them, not only through us, but through people on our public Facebook page. And then The Big D Ranch down South 10 Mile Road, they had a truck show up that broke down at delivery, and they were giving away potatoes. So a number of us showed up out there along with a trailer, and we delivered, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000 pounds of potatoes to the food bank and to community ministries, and he also donated hundreds of pounds of pinto beans. So it's very exciting. Connecting. This is probably one of the biggest parts of the garden that's just super exciting. And the garden's become known as a place where people connect. And we strive to create a safe place where people are allowed to talk. People are allowed to be themselves. And we like to believe that we're feeding people of diverse backgrounds. We actually had a Vietnamese family join us this year, and she would bring all of her cousins and nieces and nephews along so they would have the opportunity to speak more English. So that was exciting. We connect by working together. We connect by having a harvest party in September. That's what you see on the right. And this year we had our very own first breakfast in the garden. And we had one family that wanted to serve breakfast to all of us, including, I think, a park member or two joined us. So that was exciting. So these are our goals, the goals that we set out every year, and usually it's always to provide healthy and fresh organic produce for our families and to those in need. And we know that we're helping those people who can't afford organic produce have access to that, and we know that that also helps their health. We amended the soil. This was a really exciting thing. Last year, the year before, the end of 2016, I believe it was, the park built a number of big concrete bins out there and allowed us to have the end bin for composting. And that was something we really wanted to do, but we knew we were doing it on a big scale because it's a big bin. And so we take our scraps and we take almost most of what comes out of the garden and shred that and put that in there. We've had donations of manure and other things. We take bucket loads of coffee grounds into there. Thankfully, the park has access to heavy equipment, and the men that work at that park will turn that for us every once in a while. And I'm happy to say underneath that pile in the middle is all of the pond grass that came out of Kleiner Park. And when I saw that the first time, it was above there and way out there. And I thought, what are we going to do with this? It's in there. And this is what we did last year. After it composted, this was the compost going back on. And we believe we added about 35 yards. So that was a terrific addition. One of our goals has been to grow more flowers and to increase flower deliveries. We had a woman that was on our team a couple years ago who had that vision, and then she continued that last year along with another person, the original woman stepping down. But we have delivered them to, oh my goodness gracious, Grace Assisted Living, Life Care Center of the Treasure Valley, Idaho State Veterans Home, Copper Springs Senior Living, Genesis Healthcare, Meridian Food Bank, Meridian Library at Cherry Lane, the Cottages, and City Hall. And so flowers are put together in vases and delivered to brighten their space. We added 2 additional raised beds. We had hoped to do that the previous year, but these were donated to us. And this just makes our space over in the no-till area a lot more flexible. So we're excited to have that. We've already been planting in this area so far this year. We did something new that we never had planned to do before, but we entered the Idaho Western Fair. We had, I believe, 20 entries. We won 15 ribbons, 9 first place, 1 second place, 2 third place, and 2 fourth place. And you see 2 second place ribbons in there. One was for my honey that I entered. We're really excited about this. It was a fun process to go through the garden and to pick vegetables that we thought would win, and we did. So you guys should be proud to know that you are a blue ribbon garden. We used a propane weed burner. This was a huge answer to a horrible problem. That garden is surrounded by rock all the way around at the top edge, and Mike and I have talked a number of times about ways to solve that issue. There's actually a layer of weed barrier below there, and we also have the drip line on the irrigation pipe you can see on the background there on the right side. And it consumed too many hours, too many sheriff's detail hours, too many of our hours, and we don't use Roundup. So This worked beautifully, and this family actually donated the use of their propane weed burner and paid for most of the propane. And it took almost a tank every single time to go completely around that garden, but it really did a terrific job. We added cooking and canning classes this year. Shauna, in the middle, standing here at the table, she coordinated demonstration classes, and we were able to, I think I'm backwards somewhere. Anyway, we were able to teach people how to make things like salsa, how to can pickles, how to make freezer jam, how to freeze dry herbs and spices that we have in the garden. This woman on the left was demonstrating how to cook Indian food using the food from the garden. This was huge, one we wanted to do a few years ago, and it just didn't come to fruition until last year. We had a woman who had a passion to be able to teach children. So the children in the garden who are part of the garden, their parents are working in the garden, attend a children's program with a curriculum, and they learn things like the parts of a plant, water intake, all about squash bugs. And the little space we had 2 years ago, if you were out at the garden, we had an area built with pallets. Heavy, cumbersome, not fun, had to take it down. That just didn't work well for us. The Meridian Firefighters Community Fund paid for this little section of vinyl fencing. And it's a great safe space. We did something we didn't plan to do, but we started morel mushrooms, we think. So we inoculated our entire area in the no-till area, so don't go out there hunting for them. But we're hoping we might maybe grow a mushroom. It's an interesting process using molasses and wood ash and ground up morel mushrooms. You know, we continued working on a relationship with both the Food Bank and Community Ministry Center. We had a write-up this year in the Meridian Press, which I was excited because I feel like it allowed more people to know a little bit more about who we were and what we do out there. The sign is a huge help. We added that the year before, and that's just been a tremendous addition. And people come by and want to know if the number is updated because we keep a running total for them. Goals for 18, we'll continue to grow fresh and organic food, amend the soil. We're going to continue to grow even more flowers, continue teaching our children, enrich their garden experience, and share our knowledge and teach others on how to use the produce in the garden. We want to continue developing and growing the partnerships that we have around the community, making others more aware of us. We want to purchase our own weed burner, so we have that and makes funds available to purchase the propane. And we had purchased a used chipper for shredding plants for the compost pile, which is huge because all of that used to go into a huge waste receptacle. And we had an amazing donation at the end of the year. And I had a fundraiser with some of my honey, and somebody wanted my honey and said, I have a chipper and shredder you can have. And what's interesting about that, and as I move forward here with these donations, I just want you to take a look at the names. I won't read through them. But we've received some amazing support from people who are extremely generous in this community. And first and foremost, you, the City of Meridian, we thank you so much for your support and believing in us, because this has come a long way from 50 pages of rules I needed to follow to I just show up and do what we do, and it's awesome. The partnerships here are important, and what you need to know is we are not a 501(c). We don't want to be a 501(c). $35 comes in per 32 people. That money comes in, that money goes out. That's just how we run. We basically operate out of a shoebox. It works well. And these people that donate to us do not get a tax receipt. Doesn't happen. So whether it's hours they're donating, supplies they're donating, plants, whether it's their volunteers that help us out, whether it's hours working at the garden, we just have amazing people who donate to us. The Meridian Firefighters Fund has donated twice. They donated 2 large shade structures for us because we are wide out in the open out there. Still would like to get a pergola. One of these days we'll keep talking about that. But we've got 2 high schools that have worked well with us. I've got a couple in Boise that want to work with us now. And wonderful seed donations from Snake River Seed. Wagner Farms just has been terrific, and Spyglass Gardens both to work with. They do a lot of growing for us. Jim Miller at Walmart over there across the street from the garden every year, come get whatever you want. And I fill up the truck 2 or 3 times and drive it over to the garden. It's amazing. And I don't even go through the cashier for him to check it off on anything. These are individual supporters, so these are just people who might have walked through the garden and said, can I just give you 20 bucks because I like what you're doing? And that money allows us to do a lot more. The money that comes in really pays for our food, our plants, and our seed. Some of things, but things like propane, those are extra costs. The additional compost tea and stuff that we do, that's an additional cost. So we've got some people that are extremely, very, very generous in our circle. I have one friend, Claire Shea, a year ago, her sister died, and I knew her sister. I never had met Claire before, and we were talking online after her sister died, and she said, can I send you a check? And I thought, sure. She goes, we're spending Christine's money, is what they were doing, and they wanted it to be in something they believed in. And she sent a $300 check. It was just amazing. So we love working and playing in the garden. This is what a Saturday might look like. And we take a lot of pictures of our groups of people and whatever our harvest was for the day. So you can see we have a nice group of people there. And another one. And we're all smiles. This is on harvest day or cleaning up days. So this is what we do. We just take tubs out there, we fill them up, and at the end, people go through them and take a bag or two for their families and for their weekly needs for vegetables. And we'll be back. We've already started planting in the garden this year for the 2018 season. We have 32 people on the roster, and we never know for sure if they're going to show up for our annual meeting. But what you do need to know is I had to turn people away this year. This was the first year that I had to turn people away and said, we don't have room. And part of that's because we've created community and we've got people that are doing this garden together, and they love doing what we're doing together, and they don't want to not do it. And so we've become a community. And so we're going to add a handful of new people in, and we need the new people. That's the big part, is we need the new people to bring some new ideas and to help us with moving forward, I think, with the garden. Maybe somebody that wants to take my place, because the problem we have now is nobody wants to take my place. So thank you very much. Any questions? You know, Katie, who started this garden, had a great vision for this garden, and she was the gardener, but was not organized. And I'm the organizer, and I Google how to garden. I think I offended a master gardener one day. I said, I'm not a master gardener, but I know how to Google really well. So that's what we do. And, you know, just to compare for some numbers, one thing I didn't share, I think our first year we had 1,800 pounds donated. And now we're at 7,500 pounds. So exciting.
It's incredible. Do you guys have any questions?
Madam President?
Yes.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for coming and giving your presentation
Thank
today,
you.
and I appreciate your time. And thank you for your time that you've devoted to this project. I can feel your enthusiasm. And you mentioned that this is the first year you've had to turn people away from the garden, that you just haven't had enough room for everyone. Would you say that there's a demand for another community garden to be added in Meridian somewhere else?
You know, I think it would be a good idea in the future. And I know I came in on some of the planning with the garden. I think that's going to be eventually down McDermott, Cherry Lane area. And I think the initial plans looked like there were some plans maybe that a community garden could be in there. You know, I think people are liking gardening, and the statistics that I continue to read, when you look back to Victory Gardens long ago and then to where that went away and now it's back again, more younger people are going into farming, even though it's a hard field to be in. I think there's a need. And I think we've developed a really interesting model here that I've not seen replicated anywhere else in the country. I've traveled to quite a few different community gardens, and most of those are set up where individuals rent spaces. And that was something the city didn't want that responsibility for. And so we operate that entire garden, and all 32 of us have responsibility to that entire garden. And it makes a difference. So if one person drops out, then 31 of us have responsibility for that garden. Yeah. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam President,
Yes.
if I might also respond to Hannah and then maybe add a question, but I think that there would be demand, my opinion. The issue is not finding space. I mean, we've talked about, you know, if one could be added out at South Meridian Regional Park in the future. The problem is not space. The problem is finding another Julie.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Right? We need to find someone who's willing to own and kind of lead the community garden group. And if we identified another Julie, then you know, we would work hard to find a place. So I don't think the space is the problem; it's the leadership.
Absolutely.
I think another challenge to that for the city might be to actually have a paid spot for that person. And it wouldn't have to be a full-time position at all. But I know from other cities that I've looked at, and North Carolina is just way ahead in this whole community garden thing. They do a terrific job, and they network throughout that entire East Coast. And most of those people have paid positions. Even like at Bugs for Boise Urban Gardening, they have paid positions, but they also charge a tremendous amount of money to do what they do there. You know, like for children to go to a camp there, it's like $90, I think, for a week. So there's a tremendous, you know, some money that's there, I think, that helps support that staff. We would love a commercial kitchen like they have, by the way. That is just amazing.
Really?
They've got a great barn, commercial kit. It'd be perfect. Next thing at Kleiner Park, we could do that. But really, I think having somebody, you know, I'm pretty devoted. I'm at a place in my life where I can be fairly devoted. That could be changing. My husband just retired, so that makes a little bit of a difference on where my free time is fully spent. And unfortunately, he's just kind of at my hip doing the same thing. So, and we're both firstborn, so we get a lot done. But I think there is a need, and I think we could see that expand and do the exact same model. And if there was a person almost kind of overseeing both, you know, it'd be a way to do that. Yeah.
So, Madam President, if I could follow up with a question for Julie, you know, could you just follow up that with a little bit more about succession planning, and are you actively looking for that person on your from within your group that might be willing to take your place? Because quite frankly, we love your passion. We hope to never lose you, but
our bylaws say that my job was over in 2 years. My first year was fill in, and then 2 years, and now it's going on 3 years after that. The problem is we hire, or not hire, but we add new people into the garden. We see people who are passionate. We work very hard at having somebody be the vice president, but then they go away, or that's not something they want to do. And so people they love being a part of the garden, but they just don't want the responsibility. I've definitely made it more than it was. You know, I mean, it was important to me to have an annual report that went to the city. It was important that people knew and saw what we were doing. I mean, we're just a small corner in Kleiner Park. That's all we are, with 32 people. But we do great things in that garden. And I just wish somebody wanted to take over. I do have a woman this year that's coming on board who could be a possibility. She's got the passion. She's attending all kinds of soil classes and gardening things on big levels, on big agricultural levels, yes, so, yeah.
Madam President, I have a question. Have you, in your review of other community gardens and what other communities are doing, have you found that any of them have looked to grants or other funding models instead of the city to support having paid positions who can help coordinate and manage? A
number of them do, and they are 501(c)(3)s, and so that allows them to do that. And that's our biggest drawback, is not being a 501(c)(3), because we've not really felt a need for that. And we've had some opportunities for some grants if we were, but also at the same time, it's like, what did we need that amount of money for? You know, we didn't need $5,000. Like, what would we do with $5,000? You know, right now, except maybe build a pergola or a commercial kitchen, right? Yeah, so, no, so that would be an option. But you know, we're kind of like a small mom and pop operation, and we like how easy it runs, and not, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes.
Madam President, over here.
Messiah.
So a couple of things. If you wanted to take advantage of some grants and get money to help out with different projects or, you know, salaries or hourly wages, whatever. Director said, would it be possible to take advantage of the 501c3 of, is it called Friends of Meridian Parks or something like that? I don't remember. Craig was in charge.
It's possible to look into. It's inactive at this time, but it's not formally disbanded. So that's probably a better question for Craig. Commissioner Steele at a future date.
Might want to talk to Commissioner Steele and see if that's a possibility, because you could take advantage of their 501c3 and then they could donate to that, and then you could take advantage maybe of those funds in that way. Maybe.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Julie, the community service, you were talking about the hours that are donated from different groups. How do these groups find out about the need? Do you post that on Facebook? Do they come to you?
So we contacted the Sheriff's Detail. That was a recommendation 2 years ago. So I call them in January and schedule them. So they're just scheduled already for the rest of the year. The other groups find us on Facebook, or it's through word of mouth. The Scout troops are pretty familiar with us. And we have a lot of returning troops that come back. And they usually want to do not only a tour of the garden, but they also do a project out there and will help. And then the volunteer coordinator here at the city also has put us in touch with various groups that are looking for somebody. Sometimes they'll call in February. It's like, well, we have nothing for them to do in February. Or we have 100 people. Well, we don't have room for 100 people to come work out there.
Right. Well, after sitting on the commission for a few years and seeing the progress of the garden, it's pretty amazing what you are doing. So I want to thank you for your service. And I don't think you're just connecting with people, you're also setting an example of what the city's all about.
Thank you.
So thank you. It's extremely impressive. And I don't think we will find another one of you, but hopefully we can find someone to help.
I keep hoping. I keep hoping.
Yeah.
Somebody that just has a passion that wants to plant and feed people.
Well,
That's my heartbeat.
maybe we can clone you or something. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Yeah, that deserves clapping. That's amazing. Okay. Since our order is a little different, now we have Dana and Garrett with Meridian Home Court.
All right, well, thank you guys for having us here tonight. We're here to talk about Home Court and Bay 5. And what we mean by Bay 5 is where the YMCA currently has their fitness equipment that will go away once the YMCA moves out. So we're looking at programming that space and looking at options and what we can do. So kind of moving on to kind of review back when I was last here to talk about Bay 5 and the concepts and things that we have. On November 15th, Dana Kaufman with Insight, who's here tonight, him and I reviewed the details of the three draft concepts of the Meridian Home Court Bay 5 project, which are right over here, if you guys can see that from that far away. But option C1 was basically a single story to support a second story in the future. Option C2 was just a single story, never to hold a second story. And then option D was a main level and an upper level. We discussed programming as well as additional parking needs and potential parking issues. After the meeting was talked about and done, there was a strong and general consensus to move forward with direction and exploration of a two-story renovation, which was basically option D, was the commission's preference. In the past few months, we've been working with Dana as well as Kreisenbeck constructors to get more accurate costs of each of those options. Like I said before, option one was one story to support a second story. Option one would be 3 classrooms on the first floor, an office, and renovate the restrooms. Option 2 was to construct a one story which would never support the future second story, which again would be 3 classrooms, an office, and renovation of the restrooms. Option D was to construct 2 stories, which would total approximately 5 classrooms, an office, renovate the restrooms. And in this concept, because there's 2 stories, we had an elevator as well as restroom on the second floor. Again, that's tough to see, and those are just concepts, but that's kind of what the general consensus was. So like I said before, working with Dana and Kreisenbeck, we came up with some costs. So coming up here. So C1, that was basically just kind of a phased project, getting the first floor to support a second floor, came in close to $2.7 million. Option 2, which was just 1 story, 3 classrooms, office, renovation of restrooms, never to support a second story, came in at almost $1.8 million. And then option D was to construct the 2 stories, whole meal deal, ready to go, just over $3.1 million. Follow my notes here. So moving forward, with that information, we're looking at our current budget. An FY18 budget currently has about $630,000 that we carried forward from last year's budget and some of the renovations we did. We're asking for an additional $500,000 this year in the FY19 budget, which we obviously won't know the outcome of that until September, August, even October type of thing. So the current budget, $630,000. Potential budget, if we were to get the $500K, we're looking at $1.1 million. Below there, I kind of put the options there so you can kind of compare and see what we got. Internally, the reality is funding. We don't have the funding on that. So we're looking at other options of what we can do with Bay 5 in the interim. Right now, that's functional, ready to go, that we can use. Because right now, the functional space is needed at home court. We don't really feel that just makeshifting classes really is the fit there. So we're looking at other options, which in turn, we came up with this new proposal, which for some reason Dana called CA, but well, we may have to rename the proposal. But either way, this new proposal is to expand the current office. Right now, if you're familiar with the office over there, it's a hallway as well. After about 3 o'clock, 3:30, when school gets out and kids start getting there and the gyms are all booked, after 4 o'clock, you can't have a conversation, phone call, anything in there without people walking through, even with the door shut. People still walk through. There are ways to get through Bay 5 into the court area through the restrooms, but they choose not to do that. They go through the hallway. And to expand the current office and add an access hallway to the gyms from Bay 5 to the gym area, and renovate the restrooms, add sports flooring with 1 volleyball court and 3 pickleball courts, 3 badminton courts, and some basketball hoops. Again, this concept that you guys have a large concept there in front of you, it's first draft concept, so obviously nothing is set in stone by any means. It's still able to be shaped, formed, all the above. But this is something that shows us and what we do currently need can fit in there with what we got. Moving on, why this proposal? It does immediately give us the classroom space for dance, martial arts, fitness, education classes that have currently outgrown the current community center. If Jake Garrow is here right now, who oversees our classes and programs and stuff like that, he will tell you that a lot of his instructors are begging for bigger or more space because of the numbers that they have. Especially the dance, the martial arts, the fitness, and some of the educational classes in there. It meets the growing demands of our adult sports programs, which Tyler will address here in a little bit after we're done here. But it also allows for the city open gym, which council currently has requested that we keep 1 court open, basketball court open, for the general public to come down and use every night of the week. We call it the city open gym, and there's a small fee again to help pay for staffing and some equipment and things. But this proposal allows us to move open gym off of the hardwood floor courts for basketball, volleyball, and things like that, or adult sports games, over into Bay 5 as the more practice court, which is really what open gym is about over there, to make more space for renovation or for reservations and or adult league games. Like I just said, increase in facility revenues, because if we do move things over there, we can have the opportunity of Tyler didn't need it for adult sports, so we could reserve that space out to community organizations that have already are constantly, weekly hitting me up for more gym space. This multi-purpose area would function better in this building. It could be used for everything and anything because it's a multi-purpose flooring in there. It doesn't exceed the current parking limits that we have over there with our current parking lot. The current parking lot has about 187 stalls, and that's including some ADA stalls. Doesn't necessarily count on street parking, but on a busy night, this still would be functioning and still have plenty of parking to where we're not bugging neighbors in an existing parking lot. The majority of the funds, we believe, are in our current budget. You know, we feel that we're very close to that budget and what the demand would be to renovate this area to this concept. And the one thing that I really want to point out is this also does give an opportunity for us to look at other areas in the community to build a new recreation facility as well, because we still do need the classrooms and the classroom space for those programs, for that. So with that, stand for any questions or concerns. I don't know if Steve wanted to add anything or if Colin wanted to add anything to what I was just talking about, or if they want to just stand for questions.
Madam President, is this on, Madam President? I think all I would add to that is, you know, we left that last meeting in November all excited that, you know, if you're going to do it right, sort of a thing, and you know, let's go for the two-story option. Obviously, when we got the numbers back, the reality hit that we just can't afford that. The concept that he's working on right now, I believe, is a very functional one within the budget that we do have available. It does meet immediate needs that we have right now. But it doesn't mean the dream of having a bigger, better community center is dead. You know, we would still keep on the table that dream, but rather than waiting for years and years to try and fit it into home court, you know, we would still look for those long-term funding opportunities and maybe look at either the land we own on Lanark and Locust Grove over by the existing maintenance shop, or we could look at our current community center site in downtown, and maybe that's a complete rebuild and we go up to multiple stories. But those are expensive long-term plans. We don't have an ability to do those today. But I think the direction that Garrett's proposing is going down the direction that we can actually get something done in the near future that makes sense. So I just add that as my perspective and would also stand for any questions. Thanks.
Garrett, do you have the existing plan?
The
existing plan of the structure, to like a key plan?
I get to understand your question.
Can I have that? Because this is at the end, correct? Oh, he has one.
So there's the church is in Bay 6,
Okay.
if that helps you kind of find where it's at.
This is the current Y area, is that
Correct, in the
Okay.
fitness area, correct.
So,
And it's just over 7,000 square
okay,
feet.
I just wanted to make sure I was in the right location. I'm trying to remember what we were talking about. Would it be possible to do accordion doors or any type of temporary, I don't know if wand doors are even still used,
It's a
but something
great
like that
question.
to
Yeah, so
divide it?
we've discussed whether we put curtains in there, walls on wheels that we can move around so you can have
Partitions.
smaller class, partitions, smaller class that only needs a small space, but they still want a visual block there so you can't see what they're doing type of thing. We've talked about all that stuff. Doesn't necessarily show it in this concept, but
Sure.
it is definitely talked about. It just gives us more options
Yeah, it
to
does.
be able to do that. So.
Seems like a flexible space, so if you can make accommodations so that maybe
Absolutely.
you could do both for at least the time being.
Yeah, and if you put a curtain in or you put some kind of a makeshift wall, you're still going to have a sound issue
Oh,
if you
yeah.
have certain things. So you have to program. That's kind of our job. We program recreational needs based on what we have available, and we do make things work. You obviously can't have a yoga class going on with a Zumba class, right? But you could have different things going on. And the way this is set out, I mean, if we had basketball hoops in here, which aren't shown here, but you could put a curtain down and you could be playing pickleball as well as have basketball over there. I mean,
Right.
there's things you can do. You could have different meetings. You can have different activities going on. So, yes, definitely an option that we've talked about and turning. That's still not obviously not off the table by any means. So.
Sure.
Madam President, I would just add, we have, correct me if I'm wrong, but over at the community center, I believe we have some moving partitions on wheels sort of thing, and we did have this exact conversation, and could we just replicate what we have there on a bigger scale and create some movable walls that wouldn't be as permanently set as, a fixed curtain or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, because curtain walls I have actually installed those in existing buildings. They're kind of big and expensive, but
Yeah, good question. Yeah, a lot of those small details are obviously I didn't talk
Right.
about, but we have discussed that in length and kind of what we need and how we would program certain spaces in that building, and seems to work and feel good.
Madam President, or Madam, did I say that right? Okay. What is the cost estimate for this? To
Cost estimate
do it
right
as
now-
you're proposing.
Cost estimate right now for this, and this is just early stages, so mind you, it's just rough estimates, is about $648,000. Now that's with a full gut renovation of the restrooms, completely starting over, making it flow better, all the above. We have some other ideas that may be less expensive, but right now the rough estimate is 648 plus or minus.
Is the plan to have the church that you've leased out, is that kind of a long-term plan? So that's.
We're currently in negotiations and talking about renewing their current lease. Their lease is up June 1st of this year, so we've already started conversations with them. They have no plans on leaving by any means, and we're working on getting them to stay. So, but if they did move out for some reason, if we couldn't come to an agreement, then their facility would open up to potentially more classroom space for us. So.
Madam President, I'm not sure if I missed something here, but why are there stairs to the left of the bathroom? I'm not.
So the current stair, those are the those are the stairs that are currently there,
Okay.
and that goes to the upstairs storage unit. There's
like a
volleyball standards,
mezzanine.
bowls, storage units, all the above janitorial stuff that we put up there
Okay.
for that. Yeah. Because storage at that facility is hard to come by, so we use that.
Madam President, it's an existing loft storage that isn't like a fully enclosed,
Like a
something
mezzanine.
that could be a
Yeah.
classroom or something, but it's just on top of the ceiling of the restroom area, basically.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? I think this is exciting. I think it's more flexible than the other spaces, so.
Seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Like I said, it does give us the opportunity to continue to, like Steve said, to continue to request money and hopefully build a brand new rec center somewhere.
And stay within budget.
Yes. So, all right, well.
So, Madam President, we don't need a motion tonight, but I guess we would like to just know that there's general consensus with continuing to work with the architect and exploring this option further. I'm sensing that's the case, but if
Is
there was...
anyone opposed to this moving forward?
No.
Madam President, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Is it okay? How long will this construction last for the option CA that we're looking at?
It's a good question, and we really don't know that until we get the final, we'll say, construction docs and work with the contractors and stuff like that. But the plan is if we could fast track it, because we have funding now to do some of this stuff, would be to maybe phase the project potentially, do more of the multipurpose area and this and that, and then once we get slower, which is next summer maybe, do the restroom portion of it. But that's still way up in the air. Nothing's set in stone by any means. We haven't even come to construction docs, but the timeline really is still unknown, considering we're only in the concept stages. But yeah, good
Yeah,
question.
the only real answer is that it's unknown, but I will say that we're trying to progressively think about it in a way that we could come up with some improvements that could be done in a relatively short amount of time, a month or two, as opposed to taking it out for the entire season, correct?
Smaller impact. Because these are the restrooms, the only restrooms in the building, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So you can't.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, or do it in the summer and bring porta potties in and
Right.
rip the Band-Aid off.
You'll have better costs, right, if you do it at the same time.
I like that idea.
Yeah. That's definitely gonna be a challenge, but I think it looks really good. Anybody have any objections?
No, I
Think-
support it.
I think we're all behind you.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much, and
Oh, thank you.
have a good rest of your night.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, Tyler. I'll say your last name wrong every time
Yeah.
because I always say, does everybody do that? Call you Roberts?
What's that?
I always say Roberts.
No one says it right, so
Okay.
it is Roberts though.
It is? I said it right the first time.
Oh, you said it right? Yeah.
I did the first time, but then I corrected myself.
All right, well, thank you for joining me here tonight. I got 11 slides for you. Kind of let you know where I've been and kind of what I'm up to and where I'm headed. First, I want to start off with a little bit of the branding that I've had. These 3 logos represented our program throughout the year. The first one is for the girls' fast pitch tournament. The second one, anybody that won a championship in the year of 2017 for adult sports has a shirt with that logo on it. And the grand reveal of the 2018 logo is there on the right. So if you see someone with this logo, thank them for participating in our program. All right, so we had a record-breaking year. I know it's been a calm winter, but just in case you forgot, last year it snowed a lot. We had 6 total snowouts for our winter season, definitely the most this program has ever seen. Kind of go into what that impact has later. So just when it started warming up, we had 7 total rainouts for our spring and summer season. And when I thought I was out of weather to cause problems, we had some smoke roll in. So with the cause and effect of this happening is kind of astronomical for our program just because we are so full and everything is so maxed out. So having 1 rain out or 1 snow out just has a cause and effect that really hinders our program. So to have 15 was quite challenging. To put it in perspective, softball was supposed to end middle of September and it ended in the 3rd week of October. People were just getting tired of playing. I couldn't use certain fields because it was getting darker so fast. I was limited to 1 field, and that's why everything just kind of got expanded. We made it happen, but it definitely was a challenge. Some pros that came out of this is we now have a smoke air quality index policy. Certain ranges, we give teams the options to play or not. If it's too high, we just cancel the game. So something good came out of that. Not all records were bad though. Currently, our winter volleyball team saw the most amount of registrations any of my leagues have ever seen. We're at 118 teams. I think our previous record was about 108 volleyball last year. So good to see that the program's still growing. More things going well. Summer Fun Fast Pitch Tournament grew by about 3 or 4 teams. I am going to hover around that number just based off facilities that I have available and staff that I have available. So, Holiday Classic, 2 more teams added. Definitely maxed out at 28. We're going to expand upon this year. This coming year, I've already reserved more courts. This will allow for more funds to come in, which means more money towards the Meridian Head Start program. If you're unaware, the Volleyball Holiday Classic brings in money. The revenues that I buy gifts and then give them to kids in need in the local community. So the more teams, the better. Softball leagues, this will always be the case until our 2 new ones come in, but continue to max waitlisted teams. Our spring league had 10 waitlisted teams and our fall team had 17 waitlisted teams. So a lot of need out there. A lot of people want to play our softball programs. Revenue is all-time high, $248,000, $1,400 above the previous year for FY17. Our current year to date, so this time last year we had a revenue of about $52,000 and we're sitting right around $58,000 with our expenses only going up about $1,300. So good to see the program still growing. Here's a fun chart for you. I mean, no surprise, just like everything in Meridian, we are expanding, we are growing. I was a little nervous about our total number of teams just because of the weather that we did have. I was forced to create a pretty atrocious schedule, not a very participant-friendly schedule, but we made it work. Everyone seemed to be most everyone seemed to be on board. But we did grow with the good weather that we've been having and how smooth it's been. A little nervous about what's coming up based on our facilities, but good problem to have. Another chart, participants, we gained 259 participants this last year. So if you think about it, we have about 250 days that we program activities, and so it was about a person a day, we were gaining if you think of it in that term. So something's going pretty well, either good location or officials are doing well, my staff's doing well. Been a lot of fun work here for sure. Okay, so some things that I added this year, 3v3 Summer Basketball League. We have home court. Home court's a little slower in the summer. I wanted to create a league that is not going to cause a lot of extra work on myself. That's why I created this Wednesday night only. You can't have reschedules. You can't have issues. You know where you're playing. You know when you're playing. Really made things quite easy. 9-week league, might change it to 8 weeks this coming summer and throw in a double elimination. It was a slow start, only had 6 teams, but we are hoping to get up to 20, and I bet within 2 to 3 years we're knocking on that door if we're not there. The next addition was the championship social. So I think that our spring softball program is kind of our most iconic program. If we had the facilities, I bet we could be at 150 teams by now. So people want to be a part of this, so I kind of wanted to add to it. I have 14 divisions, therefore 14 champions. So I wanted a reason to get everyone together, celebrate the championship. It was hosted at Big Al's. They sponsored their outdoor patio for us. I got a bat sponsored for us. I got Big Al's to sponsor a bowling package, a party package to give to us. Got all my winners, their friends, their families, their teammates there, and then raffled off these prizes. They got reduced food prices. They had a place for the kids to go play. It was really neat environment. We had about 80 people go through, and Big Al's was very happy with the outcome as well. The online managers module, I think this is one of my best additions that I've had. Previously for managers, we'd bring them all, most of them, depending on the sport, bring them into this room, go through rules, go through policies. We'd have about half the team show up, which meant information was not getting out. So this online managers module, everybody has to take it. It's much simpler, a lot easier on them. Everybody gets the rules that they need. The excuse of I didn't know the rule has basically been eradicated, which I was seeing quite constantly early on. So messaging is getting out, which has saved us a lot of trouble. Previously, our championship t-shirts, we used to design a specific logo for each league, which meant 16, 17 different championship logos, which I am not that creative, nor is my staff member. Every time that we design a logo and send it to the t-shirt company, we get charged a $70 setup fee. So this time I created a one design logo, which you saw earlier, that makes it so we only have one setup fee for the whole year. And that saved a bunch of money, which in turn we got higher quality shirts. Players love them. So I'm glad that worked out the way it did. We also added a new site supervisor. Well, replaced our position site supervisor, Ryan Johnson. He's been doing a fantastic job. Really stepped up in a kind of a challenging time. It's not a slow position being the only guy out, being the only person out there on site with the amount of people we see go through our program. So for some additions that are coming up this next year, I had a lot of people at the Summer Fun, the Girls Fast Pitch Tournament, asked me to sell t-shirts. So I'm going to get a vendor there, or I'm going to have my staff there selling t-shirts. Should generate a lot of revenue. I was getting hit up by a lot of parents, a lot of players, so that'll happen. A new league format. I'm going to try this out for my spring volleyball league. So currently, the way it's structured is teams can play Monday through Thursday, kind of random. They do submit preferences, and I try to schedule it based on that. Come playoff time, their preferences kind of go away, so it gets really hectic. So my spring league, I'm going to have my co-ed leagues only playing Monday, Wednesday. My women's leagues only playing Tuesday, Thursday, which should help with some consistency. Teams have an idea 8 weeks down the road when they're going to be playing versus it's kind of up in the air. This will also help me implement an online or a software program that'll help me schedule versus Microsoft Excel, which I'll get into. A men's fast pitch softball tournament, we used to run this. I have some contacts in the area that said this would probably work if I ran it, so we could probably get 8 teams from out of state, and that is a lot of revenue that comes to us if I can get 8 teams with 12 players and coaches and families to all come here, stay in hotels, eat our food. That would be something I think be beneficial. Our 4v4 summer volleyball program is currently outdoors. I'm not a fan of the setup because we really don't have any site supervision on it right now. We're just, because I have one individual, he has to go everywhere. He sets up, they come, they play. It's unofficiated. I think it puts us at a little bit of a risk, so I'm looking into moving it into home court. That would give me more courts, and I could also expand into a potential men's league, providing that for the first time. So. All right, we had some sponsors this year. First off, Townhouse. Townhouse Suites from the Marriott gave us 3 hotel rooms to host 6 umpires for the girls' fast pitch tournament. It's just growing so fast that we have to bring umpires in. We don't have enough in Boise alone. This also gives us kind of a pick of better umpires, which in turn provides a better tournament. So them being able to provide these hotel rooms is really helpful. And a 3-night stay over Memorial Day weekend is not cheap, so they really help us out. Big Al's was a new partnership this year. I kind of was forced into asking them to help with sponsorships, but turns out they really wanted to be involved. So they gave us bowling packages all the time. They've given us 2 party packages. giving us that courtyard reservation for the softball championship social. In turn, it's about $100 or $600 worth of goods. So really like having them on board. Falcon Crest gave us 4 rounds of golf for the Holiday Volleyball Classic tournament. Walmart gave us a $300 BSU bundle package for the same tournament. AJ Salsa, if you have a chance, find it in the co-op. It's an excellent salsa. Put together a prize package for us. Raffled that off. Played Against Sports, new partnership again. Gave us a $250 bat, which really that's why a lot of people showed up to the championship socials. So I'm gonna hopefully that comes back next year. New sponsorship this year with Dudley. They provide our softballs. Well, currently I purchase them through vendors here locally, but Dudley is going to sponsor us, which means I get their rates, which in turn is going to save us about $1,000 on softballs this year. So that was a really good sponsorship to get a hold of. All right, some challenges we have. Lack of staff, site supervision. So it's me on the day-to-day, the 9 to 5, and then, or the 8 to 5, and then I have my one individual at night. Then we contract out officials. We have a couple scorekeepers here and there as well. So for our volleyball leagues, we don't always have that supervision. We don't always have that face of Meridian that we want. It's up to our officials who, again, I contract out. I don't necessarily have say about their customer service. They're not CPR trained. They're not first aid trained. So getting more staff would be awesome. It'd give us a better face of the program. Information to players would be more accurate because sometimes, well, the officials don't know the information that they're asked, and they think they do and give them wrong information. So it'd be nice to have a little bit better, a little more transparency. If we have tournaments like this Summer Fun Fast Pitch, the softball tournament, I'm just going to keep it at 2 sites because I get nervous when I don't have supervision at a 3rd site. So if we go to a 3rd site, we're going to be rotating between, you don't have that quick response if there's an emergency, if there's a rule question. That's why during that tournament, me and Ryan will be 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Friday, Saturday, Sunday at those 2 sites, and just so we can have that quick response if something does happen. Upkeep on league policies, like I mentioned, some people just don't know the rules, and there needs to be that bigger face for Meridian Parks and Rec, and if we had more staff, we could handle that. Program is getting too large for the current practices, so little insight, I use Microsoft Excel. So in 1995, that was state of the art, but 2018, there's definitely a lot more practices out there, especially where I came from. It was a bit of an eye-opener, but made it happen. We're still making it work. What I have noticed is it's a very customer service friendly software that we have, or the practice that we use, but it takes me 1 to 2 days to build leagues, and that's if I don't have any fires to put out, which is rarely. So getting a new software in would turn that into 1 to 2 hours. But I have to switch my policies first in the way that I program and structure to the day specific, co-ed playing Monday, Wednesday, women playing Tuesday, Thursday before I can make this happen. And for softball, I need more facilities before I can make this happen. But in 3 years, we'll definitely, hopefully about 2 years, we'll definitely have a new program in here. So scheduling goes down. This will also eradicate human error with Microsoft Excel. Copying, pasting, human error can happen. But with the software, it checks it for you. Lack of facilities, we'll go over softball fields. Not really an issue now that we have 2 coming in, but I do want to show you some slides just in case you were concerned about the fields that we are building. They are needed. Local schools are becoming difficult to use, so schools get first choice of their facilities, and then I get second choice. Well, Rocky Mountain is getting so big that they're spilling into Heritage Middle School, and now my Heritage Middle School time is being taken away, and I have to go try to find another facility. So challenges are constantly there for lack of facilities. So when we talk about the renovation of the Bay 5, that would really help me out, because not only would that give me an extra facility, he has staff there that can set up my volleyball nets and courts, and the pressure on my current supervisor would go down. So that would help. All right, so here's the softball field usage. I'll kind of explain that first bar right there. Let me get to my right page. So the first bar there is how many softball game slots I have available, which for the spring league, Monday through Friday, was 817 total game slots available. In that time, I used 773 of them. So now the second bar is kind of the one that's a little bit more eye-opening. So that is if you take Fridays out, because nobody wants to play on Fridays. They want to play Monday through Thursday. If you take the Fridays out, I had 580 game slots available, and I utilized 569 of them. So in a 13-week league, I had 11 game slots, not 11 days, 11 game slots to help with rainouts, which we had 6 of, to help with reschedules, which we had 30 of. So it just really would help. Having these 2 fields is really going to help with flexibility, give the customers a little bit more of a better experience, a little more
Tyler,
flexible.
a single day has how many, on average, game slots?
1, 2, 3, 4, 11.
So it's one day.
Yeah, 11.
11 game slots is
11 game slots
day.
in one day.
Yeah, you had one day that you didn't use.
Yeah. So, so I had 11 game slots to use throughout the season. So fall, kind of the same numbers right there as well. So the new addition of the 2 fields is going to be great, but in 4 years, I'm going to be giving the same presentation to you. So just keep that in mind. All right, so some fun facts. Finish it up. The Holiday Classic raised about $3,000, which went to 56 children. We had a $600 donation, which really helped. It took it from about $41 a kid to about $51, $52 a kid or something like that to buy gifts for. It really came in handy and really helped. So funds raised from team fees, donations, the raffle prizes, and then the officials worked at a reduced rate, did a phenomenal job this year. They all worked for free because they had an official who was sick, who very, very sick, has cancer, and so they took half their paycheck and gave it back to me to give to this program, and their other half to give to that official. So really helped us out this year, and have a great relationship with them. Hope keeps going. Softball league, we used over 1,600 softballs throughout the year. I'm going to use 1,600 more coming up. This is the number that I liked the best. On average, Monday through Thursday, just because most people just don't like to play Fridays, numbers go down a little bit. But Monday through Thursday, on each given night, we have about 250 participants go through our program. So it's kind of awesome, kind of eye-opening. I actually didn't even realize that until I was putting this presentation together. So really like seeing that number. So each night, about 250 people are utilizing this program. All right, that is all I have for you. Do you have anything for me?
I have a question.
Yes.
First of all, those numbers are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And that is because you're doing a good job, right? You can't have 250 people participating if they can't get into the participation. Because it's you and Ryan staffing the sites, would it be possible to look into potentially having internships for students during the summer?
I definitely looked into that. I heard it's pretty difficult to navigate. It has to be a Meridian resident, if I'm not mistaken. But I would definitely look into that.
For internships? To help?
Are you talking about the summer, the youth work life skills program specifically?
No, not specifically.
Just building a position.
Yeah. Like instead of having a position because they're short in staff, maybe having internships.
And all that's worth looking into. We do have the Youth Work Life Skills program for youth specifically that is citywide, and we actually take quite a bit of advantage of that in multiple areas of our department. Internships, we currently don't have a formal internship, basically because we don't have the funding, but it's something that I think we'd be interested in.
Because I had some internships when I was in college, and you can receive credit. It was a paid internship. They don't always have to be paid.
Boise State doesn't have a sports management program, which is what this would relate to. So I did kind of look at that avenue a while back for a different position I was in. But they only have kinesiology, which makes it tough. So, or like a student development program. But definitely possible. I have great connections up at University of Idaho where I went, and a lot of those students are from here. So something we could definitely look into in creating that pipeline.
Madam President?
Yes.
Just, Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the internship, it's a great idea. I think the majority of our staffing issues are over the fall, winter, spring timeframe, because our big issue with staffing is that Tyler, Ryan is one guy who's there in the evening, and on any given night, we're with our volleyball and basketball leagues where we're playing at so many different locations. He's one guy trying to get to all these, potentially 6 different, 8 different facilities in one night to try to get all those set up. During the summertime, we still could use more staff at certain events and things like that. But Ryan isn't he doesn't have to necessarily be at every single facility because we have scorekeepers at softball games. And so that's part of the issue with maybe having an internship program is that we really need them when they're not out for summer.
What a summer internship could open up is better quality tournaments, more tournaments, having a project for them to put on, and having them run it through and through. So we have this facility for weekend events. We have home court for weekend events. I have softball fields that we can use for weekend events. It would open up that avenue for a summer internship.
I wonder if you could develop that even into business management or business students, even though it's not particularly.
We could correlate it. Definitely event management, risk management would definitely fly under that.
Just brainstorming.
Yeah, definitely.
And nice work on the partnerships and working with Big Owls. I've tried to hit them up a couple of times.
That one kind of, it didn't really fall into my lap, but I was desperate and reached out and it worked out. So.
Oh, good job. That's not an easy one to get.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything?
Madam President? Yeah. Tyler, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thanks for coming in tonight. I appreciated your presentation. And I thought it was organized and I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was. It was really good. You're doing a great job.
Appreciate that.
Anybody else?
Madam President?
Yes.
Actually, I do have one question. So you're going to look at doing date-specific programming for volleyball.
Yes.
Are you looking to do that with softball?
Yes. The challenge with softball is right now I have about 60 co-ed teams, 65 co-ed teams, and about 35 men's teams. So I can't fit all my co-ed teams Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I would have to reduce the amount of co-ed teams I have. I could fit 35 men's teams on Tuesday, Thursday, but I would have openings. So now we're reducing the amount of teams that we're bringing in. So if I wait till I have the 2 facilities, then that problem goes away.
Okay.
But yes, in 2 years, that's how it will be. So.
And that's another thing is you have forward thinking, so it's nice that you're kind of looking ahead.
Yep.
It's good. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So on our old business, we have the South Meridian Regional Park naming graphics, but Steve is going to give us a little insight into that.
I'm taking over because originally we thought we put this on thinking we'd be back to show you graphics for the name that was selected. And I'm foreshadowing the end, but we don't yet have an official name. So what I want to do is share with you the information that I did provide to the council. For those of you that are relatively new, it'll actually be quite an overview of everything we've been through over the last 16, 18 months related to this. And I'll do it kind of fast because I don't think we'll need a lot of time on each of these. But first of all, just as a reminder, Phase 1, we're talking South Meridian Regional Park, down south, Lake Hazel, near Locust Grove. We're starting construction this spring of Phase 1. That park has a discovery theme that was picked November, December of 2016 in presentations to the commission and council. It has a destination playground, splash pad, sand and water play that we're excited about. The 2 lit softball fields that Tyler's excited to get added to the programming, open grass areas and restroom and concessions buildings. And then the naming, of course, started playing off that Discovery theme early on. So where we started was Discovery Park, or Meridian Discovery Park. The commission discussed, are there too many naming conflicts? There is a Discovery State Park at Lucky Peak. It's a smaller picnic area near the base of the reservoir. We got the Discovery Center. Meridian has a Discovery Elementary. And I stole a quote from Commissioner Nesmith out of the minutes, but I think you said the phrase, Discovery Park is an awesome name, too bad the name is already used. And I think that was kind of the general consensus. We like the Discovery Park name. Felt like it was out there quite a bit. Foreshadowing ahead just a little bit, as we presented to council, they did not feel strongly that it was a deal killer that the name was off the table. They were fine keeping the name Discovery Park on the table. But we brainstormed other options together. And the options that we were working on last year, once we had kind of ruled out Discovery Park, included Highland Park, Falcon Ridge, Innovation, Adventure, and Exploration Park. We looked at some initial graphics and naming options for Highland, for Falcon Ridge, for Innovation, for Adventure, and Exploration. And those were the ones that you'll all remember seeing initially early last year. The discussion at the commission was that the top three were Exploration, because it was the best tie to the Discovery theme, Innovation, which came from one of our commissioners, and was also a good tie to the STEM and STEAM ideas that the park is based on. And then Highland Park was also a keeper because of the vistas and the views that the park has out towards the foothills. At that point, you decided to cut the names Adventure Park, too close to Adventure Island Playground, which we already had. Also, it seemed kind of theme park-ish, as I recall, were some of the comments. And Falcon Ridge Park, there is a Falcon Ridge Charter School in Kuna, and so those two were cut. We then took those three surviving names and looked at different options for Exploration, for Innovation, for Highland, in a round two. And then you might remember these, kind of 2B, we took some of those and put each of the names with some of the themes. So there's Highland, Exploration, and Innovation with the same theme there. This kind of a naming or graphic scheme, or the same Highland, Exploration, and Innovation with that style. We brought those to the commission. You guys discussed them. At that time, the commission said, look, we're ready to settle on a name, but we're not ready to pick the graphics yet. You know, none of those are really gelling for us, but let's choose the name Exploration Park and just move forward and get us some graphic options for that. So that's when we came back to you. I believe now we're to November, and that'll probably start seeming familiar to everybody, with Exploration Park on this type of sign, the rock with the peregrine falcon, and this one's really just another variation on the same theme. And then these, which were the steel bollards with cutouts. And those were the direction that we really started to go. So out of those four, option 4 was the one that we all kind of liked the best for the steel cylinders. It's very flexible. We can modify it and use it in different locations throughout the park. If a different area of the park has a different theme, you can theme those cutouts appropriately. And this was the inspiration, as you'll recall, the picture that went around for those steel cutouts. And right now, there's a lot of interest in having them lit, but whether or not they can be lit remains to be seen. So this was the last slide for the council presentation. I asked them for discussion, asked them if, I said we have a recommendation from the commission for the name Exploration Park. We had heard some interest when President Greer presented the week before on Discovery Park, or do they like one of the other names? And we also asked if they liked the direction of the art and signage using the steel cutout bollards. I'll take the easy one first. They do like the direction the signage is going with the steel cutouts that you selected. But they still were not ready to settle on a name. What they asked us to do was to survey the community. So instead of just choosing one at the council level, they said, you know what, we want to hear from the community. We want you to put out a survey. This is still being finalized, but currently, here is the plan for the next steps to do so. We're going to create a survey using SurveyMonkey, and a flyer that we'll use all over the place with the URL that people can go to. We're looking at doing this over the next couple of months. In April, the focus will be on the SurveyMonkey survey. It'll be live for the month of March, and then we'll distribute the flyers a variety of ways. All those bullets are just ways to get the information out. We'll post it on the website. We'll use our social media, get it out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Nextdoor. We'll do an email blast to everyone in our system. We can distribute paper copies at Coffee with the Mayor. This next one I really like. The mayor's interested in reaching out specifically to the elementary schools that are closest to the park. So Sienna, Hillsdale, and Mary McPherson, we would ask the elementary schools to take a vote from the kids and give us their results. And then we'd also work with the Meridian Press to get that out. In April, they want to try something new. Basically, they want to focus on putting it out in the water sewer bills, and they put out a city newsletter with that. And they want to see what the response is to that. So they would use the same survey, but create a new link so that they can see what the response is from this effort independently. Distribute it with all utility bills. Put the link up again on the Meridian website because some people might look for it there after getting their bill. Leave that open until the end of April. And then the purpose of that, as I just stated on that last, it'll provide them valuable information to know the effectiveness of their newsletters. Before I go to the next slide is kind of how we're proposing the question look. And what I would just say is, it didn't seem right to just say, which name do you like best, these four, with no context. Because the context is everything for these names, right? But we also needed to keep it simple and also try not to push people toward one name or another by the way it's described. So this is the draft. The new park in South Meridian will utilize ideas and concepts from STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. The park will encourage discovery and exploration through play and learning landscapes in innovative ways. It is located on the bench in South Meridian with views of the surrounding area and foothills. There's a little context for each of the names that are coming. Which name do you like best for the park? Discovery, exploration, innovation, or Highland? They did agree to leave it to just those four. We don't want a Parky McParkface type suggest. That'd
be kind of fun.
So they do want to leave it to the four top selections that the commission came up with, but the idea is to put this out in the ways that I just described, primarily the survey and getting it out through the blasts in March, and then in April using the utility bills, and then also reaching out to the elementary schools. So that is the current status and the direction that we are headed. We don't have an official name yet, but the report back to you is we did take your recommendation to council. Council would like to put it out to the community and let the community weigh in. So I'll stand for any questions.
So is the time frame critical to have
It is
that
not.
done by April? Because I was wondering if it wouldn't be more prudent to have that, because Parks and Rec Month is in July, although that's further down the list or further, I guess later on in the year, that might be something that we could use for theming. I don't know if that would be.
Yeah, I think I would hesitate to wait until July. While it's not critical that we push it harder than we need to. The sooner we get it, the sooner we can actually start working on the actual construction documents for the signage that are going in. Late summer, I think we'd like to be putting it in, not just figuring out what the name is, so that we can have it up and installed and ready to go for next year. But we're not pushed up against the wall by any stretch either. We just need to have it decided and constructed and in place before we open the park next year.
And then is this something that we should expect in the future when we're doing park naming? Or
I don't know. This is the first time. We did put one other name out, but only years ago. The closest thing I can remember is the commission was trying to come up with a name for what is now Renaissance Park in South Meridian. And we were having a hard time figuring out the right name there. We hadn't come up with Renaissance, and we put that one out to the HOA because that one was a neighborhood park.
Right.
So it might be in multiple HOAs, but basically the subdivisions that were in that area surrounding the park. And because that was a neighborhood park, so it went out to the neighborhoods. This one is one of our large parks that's going to go out. It's going to serve the entire city. So it's possible that this could be a foreshadowing. But I think part of it was that there was just not a strong name that everyone was just like, yeah, that's the one. And so that because it wasn't just a definite winner. It was like, we have some good names. Let's put it out and let the community weigh in.
I think we thought it was okay, but clearly,
agreed.
Yeah.
And I would agree.
We spent a lot
think
of
the
time
council
on that.
was a little concerned that they don't want the commission to feel disenfranchised or like they didn't listen. And Treg, you can weigh in here as a council member, but I would say that they very much appreciate, once they understood the breadth and depth of what had happened at the commission level, they understood where the name came from. And I think they're grateful for that process, but they still want to put it out for the community. I don't know. Would you add anything to that?
Madam President, thank you. I think I just sort of ditto what Steve said. Honestly, it was coming from this commission a long time ago and having deep roots. I felt I was one of a couple that voted actually against this. Just to be honest, it's on the public record, so it's not a secret. I wanted to take your recommendation and go forth with it. There was some support with the survey, and I could see why the mayor and other council members wanted to do that. But just know that you are greatly appreciated in all that you do. I don't think anyone on the commission or on the council thought it was the names were terrible. I think that they just wanted to reach out and see what the community thought about it. I honestly think that if there was a little bit of push for Discovery, I think it would have been Discovery that night, honestly. I think that, in fact, the mayor sort of leaned over to me and said, well, if I thought that you were going to support Discovery, then she would have just, because she was the deciding vote, that she would have just said, let's just do Discovery. So I think Discovery most likely was, in fact, I think it was by far the #1 choice, in my opinion.
Right.
We'll have to see.
So it was a split vote, but the winning vote was to put it out to the community. So that's what we're going to do.
Madam President?
Yeah.
I have, we discussed it in depth as far as that goes. But, and I understand, because Discovery rolls off the tongue nicer.
It does.
The only problem is, I think it still will be a little confusing if they decide to do it. But if you're going to throw it out to, I was involved in the naming of Renaissance, and we, at the commission or committee level, whatever it was at the time, decided to throw it out there because, like you mentioned, you threw it out there. So if we're having a problem, if it's not rolling off the tongue, why not put a added spot in there, line 5? Do you have a better idea? Because if we're going to throw it out to the citizens for ideas, obviously,
Right.
it passed through this commission, passed through your department, went to city council. There wasn't any clear cut. Nobody's just loving it. So why not? If there's a better idea out there, then maybe we haven't thought of the right name of those 4.
Yeah.
You guys put a ton of time in it.
If they get to keep the sideboards on that, I think they're.
Just one little spot.
Yeah.
Not like throw in 100, but you never know that somebody might come up with something that, maybe 900 heads are better than, I don't know, 50.
You never know.
I'm just throwing it out there. So, because it does kind of not, you kind of feel a little bad, Treg, that you guys shot us down. But although you supported us, I'm just kidding.
It's only 2 years to figure that one out.
Just, hey, brother, I'm with you. So, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Sure.
That as an idea that
And council.
maybe a write-in ballot because, kids are great. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes there might have been a better idea.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Trey, but I think the council actually discussed that and, what the pros and cons of a write-in vote.
Right.
And opted to keep it to the 4. But there are pros and cons to that.
Absolutely,
Sure.
I'm sure.
Yep. But,
Madam President, I think the main issue with that was, we were joking about it earlier, but this is a real thing, having like some momentum of parking McParkson or whatever it is. I mean, I think that there could be like some serious issues with that. I mean, like what would happen if like some person on social media or something, or someone thought, grabbed a hold of it and really took it, the bull by the horns and went full steam ahead with a full marketing campaign for something like that, and it garnered most of the votes. So what would you do? Just kidding, we're not going to use your recommendation. And so that's the reason why we wanted to keep it within, we wanted to set some parameters and some limits to what it would be, just to eliminate any type of sideways recommendations that could potentially be a winner. So that's what we thought.
Madam President, I wasn't a part of the council discussion, but just throwing it out there, what if, you put, just to be able to put those sideboards on, you had the vote of the 4, and then, if you have a great idea, another great idea for a park, direct message the Parks and Recreation Department Facebook page and tell us your idea. And then if Shelley could compile them weekly or whatever and send us, and if there's something that looks great, we could take that on. But then at least the general public is not seeing them.
I don't, Madam President,
That's a good idea.
I don't think that would be something to talk about. I don't see, just as long as we have control over that situation, because it could go sideways pretty quick. But I think it could work. Something to talk about.
the sideways example in the Parky McParkface comment came from a real situation where, I don't know where it happened, but they decided to name a boat, a ship, and whatever the public wanted, was going to be it. And someone started a campaign for Bodie McBoatface, and it won.
Well, I guess
so
you just don't always think about all those
so.
things either. So that.
Madam President.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but they had legal disclaimers saying that they weren't going to name it that. So.
Oh, did they? Okay,
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes. And it was in England. So, yes, I do know that one. So one of the questions I have is actually coming back to the April a deadline? Because we have a big park grand opening celebration in May, which might be a great opportunity, given it's also on the south side, to have that as something where we're garnering interest in the new park and seeking face-to-face feedback from people, with like little voting. We could use that as an opportunity to also drive voting instead of just being through some kind of digital format. Have you thought of something like that?
I have not, but and I'm not sure how much I can change the council's direction at this point.
No.
But
Using the names, but as a put your token in a.
Oh, right, as another
Yeah.
way to gather input. I have a meeting with the mayor later this week. I'd be glad to bring it up as an idea.
Madam President, so I have a handful of questions. One, when was this infamous city council meeting that apparently much was discussed? Do you know, approximately
Just 2
when
weeks
this
ago.
meeting was? Just 2 weeks ago? Okay.
Yep.
I think that'll be interesting to review that discussion. Also, I had a similar idea to just have an option that says, I don't like any of these options, and I like the idea of sending in a Facebook message just saying you're invited to Facebook us. Could you go back to the slide about the verbiage that would be used on the survey?
Let's see. I don't know if I can I use this?
This one, the brainstorming.
Yeah, I can.
No, it was like the second to last slide. Yeah.
That one.
I would recommend adding a sentence to explain how large this park will be and how impactful this park will be on the community. To just mention, like, this is not some kind of small park that you might not notice. This will be twice the size of Settlers or the size of Kleiner Park or whatever it may be, just to kind of add some context to how big of a park this
Yeah,
would be.
and I had some of that, you know, I really felt compelled to talk about it being developed over time, because it's not going to have all that many STEAM type elements in the first edition of phase 1, right? But this park's going to grow and develop over time like Settlers has. And so I had some descriptives in there about growing over time, and at the I think the description got too long, so it got cut. But I can bring that up to Casey as the communications manager and see if she thinks a description of the size would be appropriate.
Just to mention it, that this will be
A significant
about the size of Settlers, or something.
Yeah, it
like that.
compares.
Yeah.
You could put
Larger
the new
when it's done.
80 acre, or whatever, right in your, just change the.
Yeah, I mean the first phase when they go out there, you know, if they have in their mind that when I go out and see this next year, it's going to be bigger than Kleiner, bigger than Settlers, it won't be, right? It's going to be a little smaller than Heroes Park, a little bigger than Tully, about the same amenities as Tully in phase 1. At least similar ones. We do have some special things like the Idaho climbing wall. I don't want to downplay it too much. We have some cool stuff planned for this park, but the first phase is not the full meal deal, right? It's coming over time. So, did you have more?
I don't think so. Thank
Okay.
you.
Anyone else? Well, thank
Okay,
you,
thank
Steve,
you.
for the presentation and taking all the questions. So next on the agenda, we don't have anything with pathways, so staff reports.
I think we've covered everything that I needed to cover tonight, so I'll stand for any questions.
Madam President. Steve, I do have a question for you. I don't know if anyone else in the staff can answer it. Earlier, we talked about the fact that we won't be adding classroom space and that this will give us an opportunity to find another location for a new community center. Do you have any current plans to look into community centers, or just any comment about the future of having a new, bigger and better community center?
We don't have funding to do like a major design development type project right now. We're exploring ideas for potential partnerships. Some of you will remember we have existing concept plans. Commissioner Nesmith will remember this at least, for what was going to be the field house out on the site at near the existing maintenance shop. So we do have some concepts for how a building, it was going to be gym space. Now we're not talking about, we have the home court now, so let's not do gym space, let's do classroom space and community center type needs. But we at least know how a structure of a certain size and accompanying parking can lay out on there. I think as we identify potential funding sources and timelines, we can start to develop those more. While I don't have a specific answer for you for this is our timeline, I can tell you the communication around it, the ideas surrounding it, especially with Colin and Jake as the community center director, are very much alive and well. So we plan on exploring, turning over all the rocks and seeing what we can find, and then moving forward as we find funding.
Thank you.
Do you have anything, Mike?
Haven't said anything all night. I got to warm up my voice. So the South Meridian Regional Park, we're going to start digging in about 2 weeks. We're doing survey work right now and putting up the erosion sediment control barriers and stuff, and we're wrapping up agency approvals, and so we're going to start digging in 2 weeks. John, the Lemp-Larkwood pathway is going to start here in a couple of weeks. Got an approved contract and license agreements on next week's council agenda. So we got to do that little irrigation crossing prior to March 15th. and the contractor is going to come in and grade it, and we're just going to gravel it this year and probably pave next year once the irrigation district is done their work and out of there. And then the Linder Road sidewalk widening project across from Tully Park from there to U-Stick is scheduled to start on April 2nd. So some exciting things, some new trails and big park. Fun.
Thank you. Anything, Colin?
Yeah, I'd like to update on a couple things. First one is on the farmers market. So we've been talking about the farmers market a little bit, how we're moving away from the idea, from the name, the Meridian Youth Farmers Market, and trying to go towards more of a traditional farmers market, but still have a youth component. So we've finished the selection process for a new market coordinator. We're extremely happy with the results of that. We got a couple of ladies, Cherie Eveland and Brittany Price, who are each independent event coordinators that are kind of teaming up on this project. They're both, each of them individually would have been fantastic, but to have them both, they're friends and they're going to be working together. So we're really happy about that. And after we got them on board, we went through a process with we did a survey for the public to talk about, what day of the week, what time, what location, you would prefer, so that we could get a little bit of feedback going into a meeting with the mayor to kind of decide once and for all what we were going to do with the market this year. And so it was decided to keep it on Saturday mornings based on a lot of the feedback. Really what we went into the meeting with is the intent of, where do we want the market to be in 10 years? We don't want to make changes in the short term based on trying to not compete with other markets locally. If we had our way, where do we want our market to be in 10 years? Where do we think the Meridian citizens would want the market to be in 10 years? And so with that being said, Saturday mornings was really the overwhelming choice to keep it. It'll be extended out a little bit. It was 9 to noon. It's going to be 9 to 2 this year. 9 to noon was the decision the last few years because it was a youth-centered event, and they felt like they needed to keep it kind of short for the kids who were participating. We're going to try and lengthen it a little bit, get more of the regular vendors that have produce, the type of vendors that you would hope bring back the customers week to week, and then continuing it over the lunch hour. Hopefully we'll bring in more opportunities for food trucks or food vendors to be at the market. And then the big news really out of it is that where do we want the market to be in 10 years? And I was really happy that the decision was made that we would really love to see the market right on Main Street in downtown Meridian. It kind of there's going to be some pushback because obviously that creates some traffic problems, but we have the Meridian Road, we have the crossover now that makes it very easy to block off roads. And whether you like it or not, creating a traffic problem creates visibility, and it creates people knowing where the market is, and it creates some interest. And so what we would love to do in the future, sometime in the future, is to put it right down on Main Street, probably between Broadway and Pine. And then, as it grows, you could grow it down Idaho Street, and you could grow it down Main Street even further. That's not going to happen this year because we felt like we were behind in the outreach to the businesses that it would impact. But I think we haven't started an outreach campaign just yet, but we would like to soon at least start talking about it with like the Downtown Business Association to get their feedback and potentially do that next year. And so with that in mind, the name came out, was the last item of business in that meeting, and so we have a new name for the market. It's going to be called the Main Street Market. And so we are currently working on a logo, hopefully have some first drafts of the design concepts back by this Friday. And so we're trying to go just as quickly as we can right now. Cherie and Brittany are working on outreach to vendors. They're doing everything they can without a logo to be able to put at the top of all their stuff. But things are moving very quickly. the Meridian Main Street Market. You should see a lot of information about that here in the next couple of months. It will be from the end of June, so the first weekend will be Dairy Days, and it'll go through Labor Day weekend. And then as we continue this throughout the years, we're definitely hoping to expand that out as it gains popularity, hopefully. I mean, and we can eventually be, somewhat like the Boise Public Capital City Market, where they start in like April and go into November, I believe. And so it'd be great to get into that realm someday. But that's really the update on the farmers market. It's pretty exciting, the direction that it's moving. Home court, Garrett was here talking about Bay 5. It's also worth noting that we're in the middle of a LED conversion at home court. So if you go over there, it's really cool how bright it is now. And the whole project, the amount of money that is going to be saved in the long run, obviously we're fronting the cost now, but the amount of the Idaho Power incentives were a really large sum. And then the annual cost savings, I think Garrett told me that it was going to be under 2 years that we would see the return on investment for that project. And then we're also getting started on the fiber connection over to home court, which is pretty exciting to be able to, once we move into that, fully move into that facility, that we'll be able to get some, instead of just having laptops with air cards over there right now, like we currently do, have a workstation for our, front desk staff and things like that. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was summer camp. We have a camp coordinator now. I've talked about the fact that we had this camp coordinator position in conjunction with moving to 3 summer camp sites. And so we just hired somebody last week. Her name is Erin Sandvik, and she is Jake couldn't say enough good things about her during the interview process. She teaches classes at the Y, was a recreation coordinator for the Job Corps, Centennial Job Corps in Nampa. And so he was really pleased with that hire, and she was also talking about wanting to make it an every year thing, which is exactly what we wanted. It's a seasonal position, and so of course there's no guarantee that we'll get the same person year after year, but we really would like to have the same person year after year, and we're hoping that she continues to come back. And along with that, we did get approval from the school district to use Discovery Elementary School for our 3rd summer camp site. And so that is also really recent news, and we are in the process of getting a meeting with the principal and starting to build that relationship and moving forward with the plans for Discovery. So that's everything for me. I'll stand for questions.
Madam President. Thank you, Colin. I just had a couple questions about the farmers market. It's exciting to see the progress and changes that you've made over the past several months. How are the new coordinators going to be paid? Is that still with the Development Corporation?
So the Meridian, we have an agreement. The city has an agreement with the Meridian Development Corporation. The Development Corporation is paying the city $5,000, and then we are then paying that to the market coordinators. And so the Development Corporation is providing the funding, but then we will be there instead of just them paying the market coordinators directly. It's going through us so that we have the opportunity to manage their performance and pay them out over the course of the summer, based on them doing a good job managing the market.
Okay. And will I remember last year the individual vendors had to pay a certain fee. Mm-hmm. Do you know if that will go directly to the city or to the event coordinators? It
goes directly to the event coordinators. That's part of the motivation to, for them to really go out and do a good job is, we pay them the base fee of $5,000, but then after that, they do keep any revenue that is produced from the market. We do have a little bit of a say in the amount of the booths. One thing that we did have in the request for proposals and in the contract is that they're still required to, whatever we decide that the regular rate is going to be for vendors, they're still required to offer a youth rate, and that youth rate would have to be at a discount, and the youth rate would include the canopy and the canopy weights and the table. And so we're still making it really desirable for youth vendors, and we plan on having a youth section to the event. I believe they're planning on keeping the same rates as the previous years, which was for everybody, there's a $50 registration fee. And that's to build buy-in, because the weekly rates are only $10 for a youth and $20 for an adult vendor. And at those rates, I mean, you could get somebody to pay their $10 and then just not show up. And that's really not what you want. And so they're trying to build buy-in to get them registered for the season. And then I'm not sure if they're planning on offering, a discount for, booking the entire season up front. They may do things like that, but generally speaking, I believe they're going to stick with $10 and $20 respectively for adult and youth vendors.
Okay. Madam President, can I ask another follow-up? So you mentioned that the new name will be the Main Street Market, but you also mentioned that it won't be held on Main Street. Is that correct for this first year?
Correct.
It'll be the same location?
Right. So it'll be right out here in City Hall Plaza for this year. And we felt like it's still next to Main Street, kind of like how Concerts on Broadway is not physically on Broadway. We felt that it was close enough to go ahead and make the change of the name now and then potentially move it on to Main Street in a future year, hopefully next year, so that it makes more sense sooner. But we felt like it's close enough that the name still makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Colin, what are the dates for the Main Street Market? When does that start and stop? Do you know?
It starts the Saturday of Dairy Days, and I'm going to look it up on my phone here really quick. So June 23rd will be the first Saturday, and then the Saturday of Labor Day, September 1st, would be the final market this year.
Thank you. It's exciting. Does that have anything? Is that it? What? Oh, that means that our meeting's almost over. Okay, thank you, Colin and Mike. So I need a motion to adjourn. Nobody want to leave?
So moved.
Madam President,
Yes.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're adjourned.